Hello and welcome into this edition of MMA Live Extra. My name is Todd Grisham. UFC's first ever event in Brisbane, Australia was certainly a success, capped off by a main event for the ages. If you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. Bigfoot Silva versus Mark Hunt. It was a majority draw, but many are calling it the greatest heavyweight fight in the history of the UFC. But was it really? For that answer, we check in with our two MMA experts. From Los Angeles, California, Josh Gross, and from Las Vegas, Brett Okamoto. Josh, we'll start with you. It was 5 rounds, 25 minutes, basically a human demolition derby. But was it, in fact, the best heavyweight fight in the UFC?
You know, I'm going to say no. And that doesn't mean I didn't love the fight. I thought it was an incredible contest. The last 2.5 rounds from the middle of the third round on was absolutely amazing to watch. It quite honestly was. I don't think you could have ever expected 260-pound men to hit each other the way they did, keep standing, keep fighting, all the way through 25 minutes. No one would have expected that. But I do favor other fights. I mean, there's a lot of heavyweight fights over the course of UFC history. You can go all the way back to the Tank Abbott days. Tank Abbott's fight against Oleg Taktarov is one of my favorites. Bas Rutten against Tsuyoshi Kosaka. The first Randy Couture fight against Pedro Hizo is an all-time classic for a UFC heavyweight title belt. So there have been other great fights along the way. This one's certainly memorable, and I don't think anyone's going to forget it anytime soon.
And what made it so unique is that it ended in a draw, and not many people complained about it. In fact, UFC President Dana White wrote on Twitter after the fight that he was happy that the fight ended in a draw. Brett, I don't think you could have knocked Silva out if you had an aluminum baseball bat. Both men went through hell and back. In the end, both standing up. What did you think of that decision?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it ending in a draw, and like you said, nobody really did, which is unique because usually when there's a draw, Twitter explodes with people who are upset about the decision, but this one felt like a draw. I think if you're going to have a complaint about it being a majority draw, it was the way that we got there. 2 of the 3 judges gave Mark Hunt a 10-8 score in the final round. I didn't think that round was dominant enough to get a 10-8. It almost felt like the judges did that so we could have a draw, which is not exactly how you're supposed to score a fight, but again, no one's complaining because this one felt like a draw. It looked like a draw, and the judges made it a draw.
Well, Silva's 2 one-sided losses to Cain Velasquez and Mark Hunt's loss to Junior Dos Santos meant basically that neither fighter's close to a title shot. But Josh, what do you think this fight does for the stock of each of these respective fighters?
Well, it lifts both guys. Even if one of them had won and another had lost, I mean, I think everybody would have felt that both fighters benefited from this contest, at least in terms of perception. Now, we have to see, give them a week or 2 to recover, see if it took anything out of them. I mean, this was a grinding, very difficult fight. But for the most part, people are going to walk away from this feeling really good about wanting to see Antonio Silva fight again, and people love Mark Hunt. So it's a net positive for both guys.
Brett, maybe I'm in the minority here, but I don't want to see a rematch. It was as perfect a fight as it could have been between these 2 guys. It ended in a draw, poetic justice. What do you think? Should we have an immediate rematch?
No, I agree with you, Todd. I think that's the perfect ending for this fight. And you got to remember that these 2 didn't really want to fight each other this first time. I mean, they're buddies, they're former training partners, they're familiar with one another. They didn't want to fight. They took the fight because they had to ask them to now go and do it again after that type of fight. I don't know. I'm perfectly fine seeing these guys move on, fight other guys. If the UFC does show interest and they want to have that rematch, just for obvious reasons, I'll watch it. But yeah, I'm with you. Let these guys move on and fight other heavyweights in the division.
We have to move on as well, as tough as it is, because if you haven't seen that fight between Hunt and Bigfoot Silva, you absolutely must see it. It's that good, trust me. In the co-main event, Shogun Rua back in the winner's circle after he snapped a 2-fight losing streak, knocking out James Tahua in the 63rd second of the first round. Josh, what does this win mean now for Shogun in the light heavyweight division?
Well, it means we get to keep talking about him as a light heavyweight. There was all speculation, and he and his camp, I think, were resigned to moving down to 185 pounds off a loss. Off a win, off a knockout in 63 seconds, you can't make that argument. I mean, who's to say, the light heavyweight division actually seems like it's easier to navigate away to a title shot than in the middleweight division for anybody at this point because middleweight's deeper. So Shogun, I think, gets off very well here. He doesn't have to worry about cutting 20 pounds to make 185. I think at this stage of his career, that would have been very difficult. Something he could have done, but no one wants to do that. So he gets life, and that's worth a lot.
Brett, maybe it's just me, but it looked like 2 fighters just throwing bombs. It was like 2 Neanderthals in there. Shogun happened to land the knockout punch. Is he really that much improved or that good, or did he just get lucky?
Well, I would never say he got lucky. Look, he fought James Tahuna, who is not a top 10 light heavyweight. And Shogun Rua, even though he is sort of on a declining stage of his career, or at least he might be, when you give him a guy who's outside of the top 10, this is definitely a potential result. He's going to look great. He's going to knock the other guy out. I thought that it was a very short fight, but I thought Shogun looked good. He moved his training camp to Sao Paulo, Brazil for this fight. He was around good training partners. I spoke to him before the fight. He said that he felt great. He felt healthy. He looked like he was in shape. We'll never know how he would have looked in the second and third rounds. But he looked good, and so this was a good result for him. I wouldn't say that he's back, but I wouldn't say that he got lucky. No, that was a good left hook that he landed on James Tahuna's chin.
I'm sure James Tahuna would certainly agree with that as well. Bottom line, Shogun Rua snaps a 2-fight losing streak. He's back, at least in the headlines here on MMA Live Extra. I want to thank Josh Gross and Brett Okamoto for joining us today. Make sure and tune in next time for MMA Live Extra as we look forward to another great fight night headed your way this weekend as Demetrius Johnson takes on Joseph Benavidez in a flyweight world title fight.